I remember several years back I asked a brother something about doing a devo, and he didn't quite know what I meant by devo. And I meant devotional. And it seemed last Saturday when we met that we weren't quite sure even how to define devoted. So we're going to talk about that. I always love a good reason for a word study. Whenever a question like that comes up, okay, let's go study it out. Let's search it out. How in our vision statement we concluded, we agreed that we're going to use the word devoted rather than something like passion or dedicated. And the question that was arising is, are there various degrees, are there levels of devotion? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. So we're going to consider the biblical meanings of the word, and from that, ask this question: just how devoted are we? How devoted, particularly in this way, how devoted am I now? And by this vision, how devoted do I want to become? So we're going to consider 3 words from the Old Testament and then 2 from the New Testament. Go with me, if you would, for the first example to Exodus chapter 13. Exodus chapter 13. And verse 11. Exodus 13 and verse 11. Now when the Lord brings you to the land of the Canaanite, as he swore to you and to your fathers, and gives it to you, you shall devote to the Lord the first offspring of your every womb, and the first offspring of every beast that you own. The males belong to the Lord. Why do you do that? Why would you do that? Because down in verse 14, and it shall be when your son asks you in time to come, saying, what is this? In other words, why are you devoting this to the Lord? Then you shall say to him, with a powerful hand the Lord brought us up out of Egypt from the house of slavery. In other words, because of what the Lord did in such a mighty way to bring us to this new life, because of that, then what is set apart to God, we bring it to him. The whole issue there, and in several of these references, is about sanctification, about what is set apart. That is near about equal to being devoted. So because God brought us to this new life, we devote what is sanctified, or what is set apart, to him. And so that word for devote is simply that which is set apart for God. Let's look at another example, Leviticus chapter 27. Leviticus chapter 27, verse 28. There's other places we can see these words, but just by way of example. Leviticus 27, verse 28 is still about what is sanctified, what has been consecrated, or what has been set apart or devoted to the Lord. Leviticus 27, verse 28. Anything which a man sets apart to the Lord, out of all that he has, of man or animal or of the fields, of his own property, shall not be sold or redeemed. Anything devoted to destruction is most holy to the Lord. Devoted to destruction is a way of anything that is to be sacrificed to God. This is set apart to be sacrificed to God. How important is that to the Lord? Just how seriously does he take that? Interesting to notice in verse 28, even though in worldly vision, this animal belongs to me, once I have set it apart to devote to the Lord, I don't have any rights to it anymore. Isn't that what he's saying? Once it's no longer mine. I have no right to sell it or to redeem it or have any benefit from it. It's already the Lord's. How seriously does he take that in verse 29? No one who may have been set apart among men shall be ransomed. He shall surely be put to death. It's no longer his. And if someone presumes to take the right to that rather than to sacrifice it to the Lord, it's a matter of life and death, isn't it? Anything devoted to destruction, already set apart to sacrifice, that is what is most holy to the Lord. That is by him to be most holy to the Lord. And again, you might ask, well, how sacred is it? Well, verse 29 answers that. It's a matter of life and death. So from the first case, we see that devoted is a sacrifice sanctified for God. From the second example, we see that to take that back, which has already belonged to him, is a matter of life and death. To take it back results in death. Go with me for another example, Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 5. Isaiah 34 and verse 5. I'm doing all of this because I really think we chose the right word. Devoted. Isaiah 34 and verse 5. For my sword is satiated in heaven, means his justice is satisfied in heaven. My sword is satiated in heaven. Behold, it shall descend for judgments upon Edom and upon the people whom I have devoted to destruction. Edom refers to the northern kingdom, the rebellious northern kingdom, who had no thought of giving themselves, returning to God. And so they too are devoted to destruction, and they will not be spared. All this begs the question then, if there are levels of devotion, what level of devotion is necessary in order to please God? Just how much devotion is pleasing to God? In my present life, how set apart for God must I be? How much of myself should I give to be assured of having life? One more time, you got it? Holy. How do you know that? 1 Kings. Go with me to the book of 1 Kings. Our third example here. And this is where it really comes together here. In the examples we've seen, devoted, that's a sacrifice belongs to God. The second case, it's a sacrifice that belongs to God. You dare not take it back. So the answer is holy. 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 61. If you're already there, Jeff, I'll let you read it for me. 1 Kings 8:61. Fully committed, or my version says wholly devoted to the Lord. Want to guess what that word is? It's the word Salem, or as the Jews would say it, shalom, as in Jerusalem. What's the word mean? Peace. Peace. The only way to be at peace with God is to be fully committed or wholly devoted to the Lord. To practice complete devotion is to know that you are at peace with God. There's several other examples in 1 Kings. 1 Kings chapter 11 and verse 4. There it speaks of Solomon, and it says because of the woman that he married, or the women, it says later in life that Solomon was not wholly devoted to the Lord. His interests were divided. 1 Kings chapter 15 and verse 3. Here's a descendant of King David. Now, in that time, the account of all those kings, a few good and mostly not, And there was a son of Jeroboam named Abiam. It says he was not wholly devoted to the Lord, but to sinning just like his father, Jeroboam. So you got really the extremes there. One who is devoted all of his life, these who are not. Again in 1 Kings 15 and verse 14. There's Asa. He was not wholly devoted. And therefore, 1 Kings chapter 20. One more place. 1 Kings chapter 20, verse 42. What happens? This is in reference to Ahab. What's going to happen to Ahab? Jeff, if you got it, read it for us, brother.
He said to the king, "This is what the Lord says. You have set free a man I will determine to die. Therefore it is your life for his life, your people."
Someone has to die for that sin. They are not at peace with God. They can't be unless this justice is satisfied. So it's a matter of, to what degree must we be devoted to the Lord and have the assurance of life? You've already answered it, Jeff. It's fully or wholly. And for how long are we to be so devoted? We read those passages completely, you'd see the pattern. For all the days of their life. It said there of Solomon. He was not wholly devoted to the Lord all the days of his life. That is what is meant by devoted. Now, New Testament, I'll try to not stretch this too long because I know these young kids need to get to bed shortly. In the New Testament, we're going to consider two examples. How does being wholly devoted change our lives and enable Christians to be pleasing to God? In the New Testament, such devotion is described in two ways. It's described as being complete or being undistracted. Undistracted, that's really, you got to get past the distractions before it can be complete. Look at Acts chapter 18 and verse 15. Acts 18 and verse 5. This is when Paul has been at Mars Hill and he's trying to convince a bunch of self-righteous, self-wise people their need to believe in Jesus, and he's speaking in the synagogue to the Jews and certainly get a lot of kickback from that, and he's got to go shortly to the Gentiles, and he's got to convince them also to believe in Jesus. In Acts 18 verse 5, when Paul and Silas came down from Macedonia, Paul began devoting himself completely to the word, solemnly testifying to the Jews that Jesus was the Christ. What's that word, devoted completely? It pictures, this is a very Western sort of picture we can get. It pictures running a strong bull through a cattle squeeze. That's the original picture of the word. If you're going to control a strong bull and you're going to work with him at all, what do you got to do? You got to run him down a narrow way and clamp him in. Yes, sir. Constrained. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. Because, Job used that word constrained, and it's exactly what it means. You've got to get him squeezed in. He can't turn either way, can he? It's tight. He's under control. What's controlling Paul in this? The Word. The Word. He is devoting himself completely to the Word. And consider, he's got the job. He's got to go either to the Jews or the Gentiles, to any place, and persuade these people to put themselves in that kind of constraint. You need a lot of power to do that. That's this devotion to the Word. He's devoting himself completely to it. The literal meaning of the word is to have been seized. Seized. That word's got a clamp on him like a cattle squeeze. It's the word's restraint or constraint. In 1 Corinthians 7 and verse 35, this is the last place we'll go. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 35. Paul speaks of such restraint, or the other word is constraint. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 35. Here he's talking about divided attention. If your attention is solely on one thing, or if it is divided interest. Let me start in verse 34. The one who is married, his interests are divided. The woman who is unmarried and the virgin is concerned about the things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and spirit. But one who is married is concerned about the things of the world, how she may please her husband. But this I say for your benefit, not to put a restraint on you, but to promote what is appropriate and to secure what? Undistracted devotion to God. He certainly is not telling anybody not to marry who is scripturally qualified to be married. But as a matter of being entirely devoted, to be undistracted by anything of the world, this might be a benefit to them. So in our vision statement, if this is what we mean by the word devoted, that we will be set apart to this, a service that we have committed to God, and we're not going to take it back, it's the right word. It's the right word. And I mentioned this Sunday, particularly in the way that we said this. We didn't say we want, did we? We said we will. Back in the Old Testament, it said we will devote this to the Lord. And what happened when they took it back? People died. How serious is the Lord about that? It's a matter of life and death. We said we will. And by the example we've seen, that means this devoted service that we've said we will, it already belongs to God. We've already committed it to Him. We dare not take it back. There are levels of devotion. See it throughout the Bible. It's a matter of where we are now and where you are going. Some are right here. We can get them right to there. Good. And we who might be here, if we can get to there and there. But it is what we will do. We can always take it up a notch. And again, if that is what we meant by devoted, I would say our mission statement could begin with, we are now increasing our devotion. I think we picked the right word in that way. I want us to seriously consider that we did say we will. We will. As Jill suggested last Saturday, it's not that we're people who try. We do. Increasing our devotion. Whatever we are right now, or even what we're not right now, what are we going to be? Well, let's sing about it this evening. Song number 671. 671. In our continuing living for the Lord, this certainly is our prayer. If anyone would have a need this evening to be set right with the Lord in whatever might be amiss,